Greetings citizens of the universe, this is GalacticusX, coming back to you with a commentary on the recent announcement of the Xbox One X. In the continuous battle of supremacy over the other two main competitors, namely Sony and Nintendo, Microsoft can muster a really impressive media coverage, and there's really a tremendous degree of hype surrounding their gaming products. The problem here is exactly that, we're talking about products made by one of the largest multinational corporations, and one that wouldn't hesitate to pull the plug of its gaming operations, if they weren't profitable for a certain amount of consecutive fiscal quarters. Microsoft wants gamers' money. Our money, but are they worthy of our trust? And what is the value of their offering? Why should we choose them instead of their competitors? Most of the AAA games nowadays try to be large cinematic productions, with restrictive and repetitive gameplay, little innovation, continuous resurrection and rebooting of old franchises, and some of the most contrived and phony appeals to grassroots gaming trends like independent YouTube Let's Players and commentators, who are constantly paraded and featured in carefully directed montages of enthusiastic and bombastic and yelling and ecstatic proclamations of amazement. But that is more of an electronics arts expertise, and we'll get to that when it's their time to discuss. Now back to Microsoft. Microsoft certainly knows how to make a console. The One S is an amazing machine, so efficient, and petite and quiet, power supply integrated, same as PS4 Slim. I would love to get my hands on an Xbox One S. I love those miniaturized, minimalist, sophisticated, low power, low thermoprofile designs, and to this day my favorite console remains the PS2 Slim, a machine that exhibits exactly the same philosophy of small, elegant, and space-conscious designs. Now imagine my surprise when I saw that the Xbox One X, formerly known as Project Scorpio, is actually as small as the Model S. Is it the 14nm lithography? Is it the Microsoft engineers' ingenuity? Did Tony Stark had something to do with it? Was he able to build the Xbox One X in a cave? With a bunch of scraps? Or are there small fairies powering the machine with magic fairy dust? Seriously now, the One X is the product of technology existing and not existing at the same time in the consumer market. Some of its parts, the main CPU featuring AMD Jaguar cores, the GDDR5 memory, are readily available, whereas the graphics core in truly next-gen, it belongs to the AMD Vega platform, which is due to appear in PC discrete graphics cards later this year, a little earlier than the launch of Xbox One X. It's no small feat for a compact, low-profile console to, allegedly, achieve 4K resolutions at 60 frames per second. And I say, allegedly, because, despite the X obviously being significantly more powerful than the PS4 Pro, it's still debatable if the Xbox One X will successfully operate in native 4K while maintaining a steady 60 FPS rate irrespective of the complexity of the game. Sure, some first-party games like Forza 7 will run on 4K/60 FPS, and I think Forza 6 and a bunch of other existing and upcoming games will be automatically updated to achieve the same level of visual fidelity. If you've read some technical analysis about the level of performance of the Xbox One X, you will realize that the impressive 6 teraflops figure that Xbox executives often refer to, is not exactly indicative of the new console's performance. This is important, because teraflops are related to raw computational power, and that's a reason why AMD's graphics cards, especially the RX 470, 480, 570, and 580, are impossible to find at suggested retail prices right now because people are buying them to mine bitcoins and other cryptocurrency coins. GPUs with similar teraflops level doesn't mean they perform equally in polygon rendering and other graphics related operations. Moreover, The effort to desperately try to achieve a 4K/60 FPS target by combining a Jaguar-based CPU with a higher-tier Vega-based graphics core, introduces a strange conundrum, the usual CPU bottleneck performance that some PC gamers face when they try to combine a low-cost CPU with a powerful high-end graphics card. Again, in the case of Xbox One X, some clever custom design of memory bus, the utilization of GDDR5 memory and other software optimizations on the console's operating system, can certainly yield significant improvements, but at the end of the day, you just can't beat the laws of thermodynamics, you just can't procure the same computational or graphics power at such a compact console design, even if you take into account the vapor chamber heatsink that will sit on top of the processing unit. And again, this feature, which was presented as an awesome next-gen feature of the new console, is actually a piece of tech that was introduced back in 2008 and has found its way on several CPU and GPU cooling solutions. It's not that big of a deal. Actually, this detail has led to another infestation of misleading articles claiming that the Xbox One X uses a liquid cooling system, which is obviously a wrong statement. So from a technical standpoint, the Xbox One X is certainly a beautiful, compact, and very powerful machine, and I don't doubt that it will be able to perform admirably, even at 4K. But having said that, there's certainly a great deal of pseudo-technical jargon and buzzwords that fly around and surround this console with an invisible aura of exaggeration. This whole brouhaha is not any different than any other marketing campaign to fascinate young impressionable consumers. If you remember the infamous blast processing that Sega's marketing department invented, to promote the Genesis back in the 90s, you'll know what I mean. For someone who has a reasonably large library of Xbox One games, stepping up to the X will surely bring very tangible benefits. The original Xbox One and the One S, essentially they are the same console, is substantially lacking in visual fidelity and frame rate capacity, compared even to the regular PS4, and so, upgrading to the X will provide a huge boost to performance. Another nice bonus for those who still rock their 1080p TV sets or monitors for playing their Xbox games, is the fact that the X will be able to render the games at higher resolutions, downsample them to 1080p, and thus offering a smaller, yet apparent improvement in quality. It's the same thing that Nvidia introduced years ago with the DSR, the Dynamic Super Resolution, a very practical and tangible benefit for people like me who still play at 1080p screens. I still use my loyal GTX 970 and it runs perfectly at any given time using DSR. So, essentially the Xbox One X brings to gamers the same kind of technological advancements that PC gamers have been enjoying for 3 to 4 years, and the price of admission into this wonderful world of console supremacy will be the not so negligible amount of 500 buckaroos. Now, for a lot of people, $500 may not be so much. If they sell their current Xbox One model, we'll get back possibly $100 to $150 to invest on the new console, but the old models are getting very depreciated, so it doesn't look so good, and if you're planning to get rid of your old Xbox One just before the launch of the One X, then you'll have to settle for a very low price. Now, it's clear that Microsoft's strategy here is reactionary. They try to keep up with Sony in this whole cycle, this generation of consoles. The original Xbox One is severely underpowered for the demands of the new games that are coming up, and MS desperately needed something that would be more powerful than the PS4 Pro. But that means, inescapably, that they had to go full throttle, invest on expensive hardware, raise the price, and make the new machine twice as expensive as the Xbox One S. Phil Spencer, head of Xbox division, talking about the new console's placement in the market, said that, and I quote, "Xbox One S will be the console that most people will buy. Obviously we don't know the ratio. When we designed the One X, it's not that we expected it to become the #1 console from us. Xbox One S is a great console for the everyday gamer, someone who's just looking to play games." And he continued, "You and I both know there's a customer who is looking for the premium experience, the highest fidelity. I don't think Xbox One X has any competition in that space. The other consoles we've seen this generation are all competing at a sub-true 4K level. The price is really dictated by the capability of the box. So, this is how Microsoft sees the whole industry game. They think that raw power puts them ahead of the game. Don't you think that this is somehow flawed? I mean, look at the lack of first-party titles, the lack of exclusives. Why would someone go and buy the Xbox One X, just to play the multiplats every other platform has? Look at what Nintendo does. They have a completely different strategy, but they are entirely based on unique titles that you can't possibly play on any other platform. Of course Nintendo has other issues, many other issues, but that's another whole topic of discussion. The point is, Microsoft heavily relies on technology to promote their console, but they don't take into account the fact that people will not just abandon their PCs or their PlayStations to play Forza on 4K. And it's really telling that their spearhead of titles is a racing game, and their biggest reveal that closed the E3 conference, Anthem, from BioWare, is not even an Xbox exclusive. Mr. Spencer can speak all day about real 4K, but he is addressing an audience of largely technology-agnostic people, who can't make heads and tails of technical terms. He opens a new can of worms for competitors to scrutinize, when the Xbox One X starts to fail to perform at 4K/60 FPS. The real 4K then, will not be so real after all. Now, let's talk about the improved backwards compatibility. The backwards compatibility with first-generation Xbox games will work similarly to the Xbox 360 backwards compatibility. Players who own the original game can just insert the disc and the game will be digitally downloaded. Players that own the digital versions will just be able to download it and play. Again, that's not true emulation, not in the sense that every PC gamer has been accustomed to. On the surface, the ability to play original Xbox and 360 games on the much improved hardware of the Xbox One X seems like a terrific idea, a wonderful idea, the best idea that there is, was, and will be. But, again, big corporations know how to screw us and make it like they give us their blessings. Microsoft has ejected emulators from Windows Store, or at least I think they will do that from the upcoming Creators Edition update, and I don't know if they've actively taken steps to go after anyone who attempts making an Xbox emulator. I wouldn't be surprised if they did, but don't quote me on that. I haven't done any research on that. The truth of the matter is that people who will pay $500 for the Xbox One X to play their old Xbox OG and 360 games, are a very small and particular niche of retro gamers. The percentage of gamers who used the Xbox 360 compatibility feature on Xbox One is just 1.5%, as a recent survey revealed. Imagine how smaller the number will be for those who will use the Xbox OG compatibility feature. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't use this feature, by all means take advantage of it, but playing Crimson Skies upscaled to higher resolutions while maintaining the same shitty low residential textures and expanses of void 3D landscapes, is not my idea of an exciting feature on a new console. If Microsoft wanted to give freedom to the masses, they would release their own Xbox emulator and I'd be happy to buy it and use it without having to download again the whole game from their online service. It's a personal preference of mine. That's why I love PlayStation and Nintendo emulators on my PC. It's amazing to being able to play my original library of games upscaled on a window on my PC while the computer does other stuff. So, in conclusion, the Xbox One X is a fine console, but frankly I'm getting a little sick and tired of Microsoft. If you asked me a few years ago, I would say that I would be unforgivable if I didn't have any piece of Microsoft hardware in my collection. But now I see clearly that what they're trying to do is a desperate attempt to keep gamers into their walled garden, and they don't even have interesting original titles to contest with other platforms. I will be more than happy to skip the new iterations of Halo, Gear of War or Forza, and I don't like using their quirky Windows Store. I don't like being used as a metric, for their advertising business and being data mined, with hidden telemetry embedded in Windows 10. I have lost most of my respect for this company. People who choose to continue supporting Microsoft and Xbox with their money should really explore if there are other, possibly better paths to follow for their gaming. Of course, if some of you have already done a considerable investment of Xbox One games, then the new system will probably be the optimal upgrade path. Personally, I have invested on the X11 just for the sake of a few exclusives, primarily Forza 6, Halo 5, and the remastered versions of the original Halo games. It is my principle to not adjust my gaming to suit the business decisions of big corporations, or any business for that matter. I already have 3 original Xboxes and 4 360s, that I have obtained for very little money, in case I want to play older games, and what's more, my soft-modded original Xbox can run emulators for older 8-bit and 16-bit systems, so why should I bother with Microsoft's idiosyncratic backwards compatibility system? At least they don't charge for re-releases and digital downloads of already owned games, like Sony does. Don't get me started on Sony. If I have time I will make another video commenting on their appearance on E3. Another remaster of Shadow of the Colossus? Really? Anyway, these are my thoughts about Microsoft's new offerings. I don't really care about the majority of their new games, they're rather boring, especially games like Crackdown 3, which are too juvenile for my taste. From the rest of the games displayed at Microsoft's presentation, the one that I eagerly anticipate is The Last Night, what promises to be a very atmospheric cinematic platformer, with a sci-fi, cyberpunk theme. That will suffice for now. Until next time, prepare your receptors for another amazing transmission from GalacticusX.